Right then, we're talking Leytonstone, so it's very handy that's where our next guest lives. He's John Rogers. He's a writer, a filmmaker. He's the author of a book called The Other London, Adventures in the Overlooked City. And Leytonstone is overlooked no longer, because we've certainly put it under the microscope today. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks, Robert.
So you've been in that manor for quite some considerable time. What was it that first attracted you there?
I had a memory of it from when I'd first moved to London. I came to London in 1989 as a student. I was 18 years old and I lived in Forest Gate. And then about 11 years ago, I had to move out of Islington. I was living at the Angel in a little tiny council flat.
Right.
I had 2 kids. We were all sleeping in one room. We thought, where can we go to get an extra bedroom and a garden? And I had a memory from sort of 1989, 1990 of these big houses full of students in Leytonstone. And I thought, let's have a look there. And that's how we ended up there.
Are there still students in Leytonstone?
I think there's probably a few. I mean, it's got a lot more expensive in the last couple of years.
As in everywhere, sadly.
Yeah, exactly. And but I think when I first moved there, 2006, it felt we were a little bit hidden and a little bit left behind in a good way. You know, that people didn't know we were there, and that was a big fear with the Olympics, that people would work out that 2 stops down the Central Line from Stratford there was this amazing place, and that has happened.
Has it?
Yeah. I mean, it used to be when I first moved there, you'd say to people, "You lived in Leytonstone," they go, "Where's that?" You know, and suddenly now people come up to me and go, "Oh, you live in Leytonstone. I've heard that's the place to be now." And it always makes you feel a little bit, I'm not sure how I feel about it.
It seems to me that you're slightly competing with Walthamstow in that.
You touched a raw nerve. We are not competing. Walthamstow is competing with us. I mean, they have to go as far as trying to call it Awesomstow, right? Which is frankly silly, isn't it? Whereas we don't need anything like that.
You don't have any of that business.
No.
What about the sort of the makeup of the place? Because, I mean, there's quite a large Eastern European community these days, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's incredibly diverse. I think it's one of those places where you couldn't pin it down. Whichever sort of, it's a really good mixture of people. So there is an Eastern European community. There's a long-established Asian community there.
Right.
There's a really good mix of working class and middle class. A lot of people that sort of, live there a long time that maybe work in public service, for example. A lot of sort of teachers, people who work in local government. Just a real fantastic cross-section of people.
And you were saying there was a South African community.
Massive. So when I moved there, it really struck me because there was even signs written in Afrikaans in the tube station. Yeah,
Seriously?
The tube station. Yeah, for lettings agencies and all the sign, and that really, and all the local shops in the way that local corner shops adapt to whatever the.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they would all sell sort of
biltong.
Biltong.
That's what they'd sell. Biltong.
And there was a really weird liqueur they used to drink as well, sort of sickly liqueur.
I don't know that one.
Oh, I don't. And then they sort of disappeared overnight around 2009.
What happened?
Well, I did ask someone, because there's a couple that are left actually, and I did say what happened, because it was extreme, and they said it was a combination of the financial crash. They thought, oh, we can afford to live in Richmond now, and it was a visa change as well. Right. I think they changed the visa so they can stay.
Because obviously it feels like one of those areas that people sort of come. Do most people come and stay and bring up their families, or is it a kind of more of a transient place?
Yeah, I think because where do you go from Leytonstone? You're out of London, and that used to, like Damon Albarn is a classic example. His family, they grew up there, and then they went and lived in, was it Colchester? Didn't they?
Except he's in Notting Hill now, of course.
He's in Notting Hill. He's come back. He came back pretty quick, didn't he? That happened a bit, but I think now people tend to stay because, like I say, the next move is out of London, and it's a great place to raise kids. I mean, I've raised both my kids there, and great schools, great open spaces. It's safe. And
is there a sense of community? Would you say?
Oh God, that's one of the best things about it. Is an incredibly strong community spirit there, really strong. A great sense of civic pride. It's one of the things that really struck me when I first moved there, and it's one of the best things about living there. Very, very strong community, very supportive. We had a campaign to, I've been involved in 2 campaigns since I lived there, one to save a local pub and one to stop the school being academised, and the support from across.
And did you succeed?
Both were successful. The Heathcote Arms reopens at the end of this month.
Wow.
And the school fended off academisation, got a new head in, it's going really well. So the support came from everywhere. From right across the community. And we have a great festival. We have an arts festival in the summer, the Leytonstone Festival. We have an arts trail as well, supported by the whole community. And it's a really great sort of month.
Because I think one of the things that has happened in London, and this is one of the positives of gentrification, if you like, because, all change is a double-edged sword. It brings and it takes away. And I think, we've seen London change so much. But I think one of the things that has happened is that some of the more outlying areas, which once were essentially dormitories, people lived there, but they worked in the centre of town. They went out in the centre of town, and and they kind of slept in Leytonstone, or they slept in Croydon, or do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I think because those areas have, because inner London is now so expensive, people don't even look there, don't even think to there. So they make much more of their lives around where they live. And that seems to me to be a real positive.
I think that's definitely it. And I think people really appreciate where they live now, partly because they're spending so much money to live there.
Yeah.
And they're going to stay. I mean, you can't really move on. But I think Leytonstone...
It's not a stepping stone, is it?
It's not a stepping stone anymore. And we're really lucky. I think there's a number of factors. I mean, Leytonstone had a massive artist community before they built the M11 link road. It had the largest artist community in Western Europe.
No.
Yeah, I kid you not.
The Leytonstone School?
The Leytonstone. It was, exactly. Well, you think, Professor John Smith, Cornelia Parker, Ian Bourne. We got Bob and Roberta Smith lives there now, although he's not part of that sort of generation, but had the largest community of artists anywhere in London. And a lot of them were from the area, a lot of them moved to the area, but also a lot of them stayed in the area after the link road. Obviously, the link road demolished all those houses. I mean, you remember the Claremont Road protest? Yeah.
Was it? What was the name of the Swampy?
Oh yeah, he came at the end. I think he was. It's when the anti-roads people got involved. But before that, it was an artist community that had grown up for a long, long time. I mean, Yoko Ono visited the area.
Wow.
Back in the in the 60s. Yeah. So.
And is there still a semblance of that?
Definitely. It's a really strong. It's a really strong community. There's a lot of artists there. There's a lot of musicians there. So I think there's always been a lot going on in Leytonstone. We've had great venues. We've got one of the best live music nights in London.
Where's that?
What's Cooking? It's at the ex-Servicemen's Club now. It's country fried rocking music. I recommend it to everybody. It's an amazing night. It's incredible touring acts come and just play it. Yeah. It's a great night, Robert. You'd love it.
We've been hearing about the Lunar Lounge.
The Lunar Lounge is brilliant. I love the Lunar Lounge. I go in there too much. Too much. Yeah. I mean, a great Wednesday is you go to What's Cooking, and then that finishes at 11, and you've got an hour of the sort of the jam night at the Lunar Lounge, and you go over to the Lunar Lounge, and it's a great atmosphere. 7 nights a week at the Lunar Lounge, live music.
Wow.
7 nights, and good. Always top quality.
Do any of the locals still go and see Leyton Orient?
Yeah. Actually, Gary Lewis, I imagine, will be listening to this. Always fills me in. He sits outside the cafe and gives me bulletins. Yeah, there is a strong support. I haven't been that often. I'll be totally honest with you. I've probably only been about 3 or 4 times. But when you walk down from where I live, because I live right on the border between Leyton and Leytonstone, you see there is that steady stream of people going through the houses who haven't just parked up. They are coming out their front doors and going down.
Because, my team's Queen's Park Rangers, and they're a little bit bigger than that. But that's also a team where most of the support comes from either from sort of W12, W10, W11, or people who did and have now been forced out, further out to the fringes, if you like. Where do Leytonstonians or Leytonstoners, I don't know.
It's quite apt too.
Where do you sort of think of as the epicentre? Where's your what's the sort of the heart, the beating heart?
You mean a particular place or but the areas around Church Lane? That's the kind. Yeah,
is that the sort of high street? Or?
It leads up to the high street. So Church Lane is where you got the Lunar Lounge. You got cafes there. We've got a wonderful local character, a guy called Russell Frost, who does letterpress printing, and he prints up signs, but he does it like in a shop front that's got no front. He is the front of the shop, and he hangs his stuff out the front. He's a real artist, and that's great. That's in Church Lane. Then you turn into the high, that junction between Church Lane. You've got the library there as well, which is a lovely old civic building where we do a monthly film club there.
Do you?
To help run? Yeah.
Have you got a cinema? You haven't got a cinema,
which is a travesty, because we've got Alfred Hitchcock was born there, one of the greatest filmmakers ever, one of the sort of great pioneers of cinema. No cinema, and in fact, actually, until about 2 years ago, Waltham Forest didn't even have a cinema. The whole borough didn't have a cinema.
Wow.
We've got an empire now, but we've got no cinema in Leytonstone. That should be corrected. There used to be loads, of course, like there was in a lot of places. It's where Jonathan Ross grew up and used to go and watch films on Leytonstone High Road. But when you come up to the high road there, you've got the junction there, you've got the Red Lion pub, which I'm sure people have already been talking about, which is a great old pub.
So where do you watch your films, in your film club?
We do it in the library.
Right.
And we've actually got there's a projection box.
Wow.
We've got
really?
Yeah, it's great. They used to do workers' education screenings there in the 30s when the library was built. And so we get a great turnout. We get a fantastic turnout. And we occasionally show Hitchcock. We show a lot of world cinema, actually. Or we show films with a local connection, films that have got some connection to Leytonstone or Leyton or Stratford, Sparrows Can't Sing, Deep End, films like that.
How has the development of Stratford and the Olympics and the Olympic Park, and how has that changed it, would you say?
It's interesting because we haven't suffered physically. There's not a lot of room for Leytonstone to be developed physically. Leyton more so. But I think it's just put it on the map, and it's raised the profile, and it's drawn attention to it. I think the high street, probably the bigger shops were closing already, so it's not like Ilford, where Ilford High Street's been decimated by Westfield. Because
you see something, all my analogies are to the west, because that's what I know.
Yeah.
But something strange has happened in Shepherd's Bush. Something strange and rather beautiful has happened in Shepherd's Bush, where the first Westfield opened. When that opened, everyone said, well, Uxbridge Road and, will go, which is the main high street. If anything, exactly the opposite has happened. All the big name chain stores are in Westfield. So all the shops on the Uxbridge Road are now owned by like people from Poland, people from Afghanistan, they're like little individual shops because the rents went down there because all the people with loads of money are in Westfield. So it's actually led to a kind of a really unusual rebirth of the high street, if you like.
Yeah, I think.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Because there's no chains there anymore because they're all over in Westfield.
Yeah, and that's not about exactly. I think the Primark.
That's the better
closed.
place for them.
Yeah, exactly. And that was we've not suffered too much. I think the bigger change to Leytonstone was when they built the Link Road, and which was a good thing in the sense because it pushed the Leytonstone High Road used to be clogged with traffic, but consequently they had loads of old department stores. I mean, locals will always tell you about Beerman's, the great department store.
Oh, they already have.
Yeah, they already have. But it's funny. I've got mates from Essex, sort of Grays and places like that, and they used to come to Beerman's to go and sit on Santa's knee. So it was a real kind of focal point. But that had long gone.
There's also the cows, of course, and they've gone as well.
But they're coming back.
No,
there's cows in Epping
you're getting
Forest.
Your cows back.
Well, I don't know if we'll get them in Leytonstone because they've got this really quite fascinating but slightly cruel way of stopping them crossing the boundaries, and they wear a collar that they get an electric shock if they go over a certain point. Yeah, it's fascinating. But the cows are backing Epping Forest, but I don't think they'll get beyond Whipps Cross
because there's lots of stories of people getting their ears licked while playing, in the fields or in the park or whatever. Unless we got a great one of a cow falling in the local swimming baths back
Wonderful.
in the 1970s.
Wow, is that what the Lido?
Yeah.
Wow, the Hollow Ponds Lido. Yeah, we don't have that anymore. But you can say that the cows are back. We've still got the cattle grid on the road between Leytonstone and Woodford. You still on the Woodford Road there. You still got the cattle grid.
You love the place, don't you?
I do. I love it. I mean, for me, it's got everything. I've lived in a few. I've not lived. I mean, West London actually is pretty unknown. Although I grew up at High Wycombe, I just grew up down the A40 from Loftus Road,
right.
And it has. I mean, it's open space, and we're absolutely blessed with open space as well. Wanstead Flats is an amazing place to go and walk, and then we've got the Hollow Ponds. You basically got the entrance to the forest there, and from there, I walk a lot. And
where do you walk? Would you walk out towards the Epping Forest, or
I'll walk through it and out the other side? Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, the other day I walked out through Epping, out to Roydon. So I started walking up the Lee Valley. I walked just before Christmas. I walked from home up to Ware, which is an amazing walk.
How far is that?
It's about 23 miles.
Right,
and that's
how'd you get home?
I got the train home.
I should think so too.
I wasn't gonna. Yeah, I couldn't walk by the end of that, to be honest. But going out through Essex, out through Ilford towards Chadwell Heath.
Does it still feel like Essex, or does it very much feel London? Do you reckon?
It feels London. I tell you, when Wanstead's about a mile and a half up the road, right? When you go up to Wanstead, you feel like you're in Essex,
right?
So I think Leytonstone is definitely
sort of the end.
The point. It's the end, exactly. Yeah.
It also seems to me that it's one of those places that is kind of quite at ease with itself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
There aren't sort of you're not too worried about gentrification. You're not too worried about different people arriving or whatever it might be.
No, I think it's because there is an incredibly strong community spirit, and I think it's because the gentrification thing seemed to happen and end really quickly. I think it's got something because Leytonstone's not that big, really. In reality. I mean, Leyton is where you're going to see a lot more change. Leytonstone, the house prices just exploded overnight, and that was it. And so there's not really a lot of room for that. And I suppose, like you say, on the good, we gained a couple of nice cafes out of it. But I think the people stay there, and I think the people that have stayed there, I'm sure people have mentioned the Star of India restaurant, second generation restaurant.
I love India.
Yeah, I mean the Star of India is a great place to eat, and a lot of the local businesses, are owned by people who are passionate about the area, really believe in it and really invest in it.
Are you doing another book?
I am. I'm about 3/4 of the way through it.
Leytonstone.
No, it hasn't got a title yet, but it's about a lot of the change going on in London at the moment, actually, Robert. So I've been working on a lot of campaigns to save various housing estates and assets. Is there a lot of social housing in Leytonstone? There's more than you would think. A lot of the kind of old sort of Victorian houses are actually owned by the local authority. Yeah, and there are some quite large estates in the south of the area, around the edge of Wanstead Flats and around Cattle. I would say Cathal, but I'm told by locals it's Cattle. So there is a sort of there's a good proportion of social housing. There's a good mix of housing actually across the board. There's not.
Where's the posh bit?
The posh bit, well, people say that there's a bit actually that calls itself Upper Leytonstone.
Oh, you see, that sounds posh to me. That's upper.
Yeah, Upper Leytonstone. And there's an area called Bushwood. And I think,
is it up itself?
Yeah. I really like. Fora, the local residents association, they're really nice. I've done talks for Fora before. So and Bushwood, that's the bit where I think they think it's a bit posh. And there is a posh school in Leytonstone, bizarrely.
Is it?
Forest School, yeah, it's a posh private school. And there's a couple of little houses around there on the edge of the forest.
So is that what you aspire to secretly? All of you, go on.
No, I send my kids to school in Wanstead now, so which I get criticised for.
We've had a great time, I have to say, in Leytonstone. It's been one of those areas that has really, really kind of responded to doing Round Your Manor, which I think is always indicative of the fact that there is a sense of some sort of idea of community, whatever that means in modern London. And I think it means a lot more than people from outside ever imagine, really.
Yeah, I think so. I think, in a way, we're still quite tribal, don't you think, Rob? We've still got that kind of real sort of local allegiance, that real tribal allegiance. And I think people, like I say, we have it between us and Walthamstow and
or even Leyton.
Yeah, and Leyton. Oh, absolutely. Don't make the mistake of getting somewhere in the wrong... on that border I live, if you cross boundaries there...
It's very interesting, that, because that's very hard for sometimes for people to understand from outside.
Yeah.
You sort of see London as this kind of just mass, this sort of, agglomeration. But it's not. Two streets can make a small distance can make a big difference.
Oh, for sure. People in Chingford, they still, when they write into the local paper, they still sign it Chingford, Essex. They still they want to reverse the 1963 Local Government Act and go back into Essex. And I love that.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. John Rogers, it's been a pleasure to spend some time in your manor. Thank you, sir.
Listen to Robert live weekdays and Saturday mornings from 10.